Oh, Vivian.
The original, he's on PTO.
Oh,
the
that's right.
MASC last week. And of course, we have echoes.
That's me.
I was so excited. I was like, we started on the dot at 7.
We're good.
Tim, you muted.
Should we try this again?
We're good.
Okay, that was our moment of comedy. So it is 7 p.m. We will kick this off. Do I hear a motion to call the meeting to order?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. And one comment, or one topic before we go into public input. Kristen is not here. Some of you may have heard that Kristen has resigned. I think, thank you. I think Michelle also posted that. And we will talk to that on the agenda, but Kristen did ask if I could read a very brief letter. So I was going to do that to kick it off. It says, for personal reasons, it has become necessary that I step down from my role as school committee member. This was not my plan, and I am incredibly disappointed that I will not be able to complete my elected term. I want to thank Tim, Michelle, Leo, and Will for being supportive teammates over the past 7 months. I'd also like to thank Dr. Morrison and the incredible team that is the Medfield Public Schools for always being willing to discuss and tackle important issues. Our community is so fortunate for all of you and, of course, our amazing educators. Thank you for being advocates for public education and always putting our children first. It has been my great joy to support our community by serving as a member of this important committee. I want you to know that I will be cheering you all on from the sidelines, and you have my full and complete support. Wishing you all my best, Kristen. So anyway, so that, you know, just, I mean, amongst this, I was, you know, disappointed, saddened. I know, I saw what Kristen brought to the table. I said to Kristen, I said, we are better now because of the time you had, and that, you know, that momentum will continue. So I say it, I mean, officially, thank you to Kristen and for serving, and it's a very nice letter. So I'm not sure if there's any other.
Yeah, I spoke with her briefly yesterday, and I know this wasn't a decision that she took lightly. And so I also want to thank her for her time. She, you know, was an active, enthusiastic, and engaged member since day one. And I really appreciated everything she brought, not just to here, but we served together in the SBC as well. So just want to thank her for her time and making us better in the time that she was able to be with us. So
I echo those sentiments. I was really excited to have her, you know, join, and I know she would, her dedication, you know, to anything she puts her, she's involved with is very clear. So, but I'm appreciative for the time we were, you know, understand, you know, the people's pressures and other things they have going on. So I appreciate the time we did have her on the team, and I think she'll be great to work with outside of the, you know, still participate.
So, and we are, I think, recording as well and on Zoom. So first we'll take public input. Members of the public will be welcome to comment during the public input through Zoom or here in the room. If here, please come up to the mic. If you're on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand and turn on your camera. In either case, please share your name and address. And we ask that you follow school committee policy for public input, including speaking for no more than 3 minutes and only on topics under the purview of the school committee. So is there any public input here? Is there any public input on Zoom?
no, if anyone on Zoom wants to participate in public comment, you can raise your Zoom hand. Nothing.
Okay. First on the agenda is first item is the consent agenda. There are 3 items. Just let me know if any of those items need to be called out to be voted on separately. Approval of the regular meeting minutes on 11/2/2023. 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip approval, and donations. And donations I will read as well. There's a $5,000 from the Medfield Youth Basketball Association to be deposited in Blake gift account to be used for new scoreboard at the Blake Middle School, and $1,000 from Medfield Outreach to the high school gift account to help fund the Chris Heron presentation at Medfield High School. So anything that needs to be called out? Is there any motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good, thank you. Awesome, so going into new business, first up is the summer R&D presentation. So I think, come on up, Christine, Nat, Brenda, Marianne, is that right? Who's up there?
And Heather.
Excuse me?
Others too.
And Heather.
So as you know, each year you folks allocate money for research and development over the summer, and we've able to fund a lot of really good projects. So we're going to show you 3 tonight that we'll highlight, but I know Christine will go over some of the other projects that we had over the summer. As we get into the budget season coming up really soon, we'll let you know what the allocation is, and hopefully you'll support it again. It's one of the 3 buckets of professional development that we have for our district. We have the conference, we have the course reimbursement, and we have the R&D. So hopefully, it's always been a priority for the district to keep this moving forward. So thank you, Christine. All right.
You. Let's move this over. S- Okay, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present about our summer R&D program. The R&D program is unique to Medfield Public Schools and one that is truly a personal honor to help coordinate. As any educator can tell you, throughout the year, there's lots of ideas that are always percolating. And it happens when you're teaching a lesson and you realize maybe you can tweak that and make that and improve the lesson. It's when you're walking down the hallway and you're thinking about your own personal development needs and the ways to coordinate with your colleagues. It's larger scale items that are happening in a building or within the district, things that really would take opportunities to pull a bunch of educators together to really buckle down and really work together towards a larger, greater whole. The biggest challenge usually on these cases is the time and space. Teachers do an amazing job adjusting and modifying and improving and building and creating, and they do all those things incredibly well. But when it comes time to do some of these larger scale items, there just isn't time and there isn't space to coordinate and bring everyone together. And that's where R&D comes in. R&D provides an opportunity for educators to actualize these amazing ideas and these amazing projects that are in their heads and they're really thinking about and they're trying to go forward. And so it is my personal pleasure to really talk about this today. Now, a little bit about the program itself. Okay, it's actually a multi-step process, and it actually starts right around April vacation. At that point in time, we send out a call for proposals to all educators within the district, and the call for proposals gives the teachers an opportunity to really think about these projects that they've been thinking about, and also seeing how it aligns to the different structures that we have in place, specifically the strategic plan, as well as any building or department level or grade level initiatives. And so teachers right then receive this call for proposal and they start working together to start developing these proposals, and then they submit them. And then at that point, the leadership team gathers together and we review them and we look at them in terms of alignment to the strategic plan or other initiatives that are going on. And we also look at an opportunity for really to make these come to life. One part of this I love is playing matchmaker. What happens inevitably is that sometimes there are great ideas that happen in one building and another idea that happens in another building and then the same idea, but the fact that they're just in two separate buildings, that they're not aware of these things happening. So that's an opportunity for us to really match those folks together and really have them think about it from beyond a department level. Maybe it's something like a building or even a district level initiative that just may come out from and bubble up from these proposals themselves. So we go around, we look at the projects, we do our best to fund as many as possible, and in many cases, we fund a lot of them. And then I notify the teachers, and then they work. Now, over the summer, they work in a variety of different places. They may come into their classrooms in the schools, but they also may be working from home, from a library, via Zoom, but they're working on these projects together. And at the end of the summer, they submit these projects to me, and then they disseminate them. They share them with their colleagues. They share them with their building leadership. And at that point, they get implemented right away. And that's really magical because it's happening, something that they conceived, they've been thinking about it by the following fall that they can go right into the classroom. So here's a snapshot of September 2023. There were 26 approved projects and 64 individual educators. The one thing I really keep in mind is although there were 64 individual educators does not mean that there were 64 specific people working that. There were far more than that. Many of our educators, they're fantastic. They work on multiple projects. So you can have a teacher who conceives and thinks about an individual or a team project who are also working in a building level project or a district project as well. The other thing I want to highlight is that these projects represent from all different five different schools, so all across our district, as well as 9 different cross-building departments. So you'll see a real variety, which will show up here. So this is the snapshot of the summer 2023 projects from A to Z, and literally it is from A to Z. A, you can see the first one is American Pop Culture course, brand new course that is from our high school social studies department. Down to Z, which is our last one, was the epic fail of Arturo Zamora. And this was a project that was proposed by our 6th grade ELA team, and it's over novel study. So you look at all the different variety of things, and it's really amazing what the teachers and the educators really put forward, and it shows the creativity that is inherent within this department, within this district, and with opportunities, they're able to really actualize and make these projects come to life. You'll see some of them in terms of, you have coding projects, working on immigration and focusing on that, focusing on curriculum maps. There's a whole bunch that are, you can see them in terms of so many departments and so many teachers are being represented. Now here I have representation of 3 different types of projects that we have that typically come to this process. The first type is our individual or our building-based teams, and these are specifically our department or grade level teams of 2 or 3 teachers who work together on a specific project. The next level is our building-based. These are larger projects. These involve multiple people from across a particular building. And then the final is district projects. These are projects that go across all 5 buildings and really are much more involved in terms of the amount of people involved in the scale and scope. So I'm very fortunate, thank you. I have the 3 representatives here who will talk a little bit about their projects. And I'd like to start with the 8th grade team. We have our 8th grade math portfolio team. Mary Ellen Dubois and Susan Bykoff are here to talk a little bit about their project.
Christine, before we deep dive, thank you
Sure.
for the intro, and more like 1 minute more, just curious is coding. I was just curious, like what coding at what degree, and then this, I'll put it both in there. Second and more was that I don't think is covered. It's the new course, biology concepts A, just more.
Yeah, the coding project was actually by a middle school educator who's really looking at ways to incorporate coding within his particular curricula. So it was an opportunity for him to really see in terms of where the concept of coding can really fit within his particular work. And then the other one was about biology.
Yeah, it's a biology concepts A. I always hear about the 9th graders and the Reddit bio.
Brand new course. Looking at a new biology a concepts course specifically for the 9th grade, and it is just looking at taking what they have now, and they're looking at and really developing it specifically in a chunky form. I'm sorry, I don't know much more details about that particular course right now.
No, it's good. It's good to hear. I mean, that one's we all hear about.
Yeah. Okay, so 8th grade, ready? Okay.
Oh, sure. So I'm Susan Bykoff. I teach 8th grade at Blake.
I'm Mary Ellen Dubois, and I teach 8th grade at Blake. And this summer, the team, Erin Carney's not here today, but she was also part of our team this summer for the R&D math portfolio. The goals that we had were to make the curriculum accessible to all, to diversify instructional practice and assessment practices, and to create deeper thinking about math processes. We used the time in the summer to explore different platforms like Canva and Slides, Google Slides, and we selected projects for students to submit their portfolio. We have about 20?
20,
Yeah.
20 we have to whittle down a little.
And then we selected the proper technology to help administer the projects.
So I think it's important to note with the math portfolios that as educators, we have spent about 5 years really working through grants from MCPA, and most recently the PTO has been providing grants for us to be reflective as educators, and we've created these projects which are hands-on multisensory approaches to learning math. And what we're trying to model is, as we as educators are becoming reflective, we are now at a point where we can ask our students to create portfolios and reflect on their learning. So what you see in the corner is a square of one student's one project and their reflection. So we have tried to integrate a lot of technology. So we may be burning coins. That's a little coin of an art palette at the makerspace with the laser printer. And the entire purpose of that is to kind of bring the abstract. So this child reflected and said, I began by buying a paintbrush that cost $10. Then I bought X amount of paints, so that's abstract. We're not really sure how many paints that were each $3. And then she created an equation with her budget of $15. And that one teeny tiny coin represents the number of paints that she could buy. And so she's reflecting on that and putting that in. And there, she has 20, she will at the end of the year have 20 like this. We also have, we decided to pick a few 8th grade, a wide variety of work. And this was a wonderful portfolio response that children had to do. We are teaching a very difficult topic, I think, in 8th grade, substitutions for systems of equations. And I don't know if these links are live, but if I can click on it, we are teaching students how to take something, an algebraic expression, and use imagery to then replace it into a second equation. And so what ends up happening is students can see the math come alive. Something very abstract becomes something very concrete, such as taking a football, putting it in a goalpost, taking pepperoni and putting it inside a stuffed pizza crust. And I can tell you, our 8th grade students like a lot of pizza, they like a lot of sports, they like a lot of arts and crafts. And so I will try to press play and you're gonna see, this is just a typical 8th grade student. Oh golly, oh here we go. So they're animating, oh you can't hear it. I don't know how to do that. So what for the math people, I don't know if that's gonna work. Okay. So we're really proud of these students for doing this because they're taking something that's very abstract and making it meaningful for them. And the entire idea of doing this is to allow them to reflect. We learned how to substitute and solve a system of equations. I let the football represent y+2 and the goalpost represent the parentheses. And that is the students' words. Students can text, speech to text, they can handwrite it, they can get help from us, and it's just exciting. I can show the pepperoni pizza one, or I can, okay.
Let's go for it.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you for your time.
Can I just say one last thing? Really, this has been quite an adventure. And even we just did one the other day, and it's really exciting to see it in the classroom. And so I can't thank Medfield Public Schools enough for supporting us through all the grants.
Right.
It's just really been
It has been
enriching.
awesome. The learning has increased. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I just want to say, I think that's awesome. As someone who taught math for 9 years,
Oh, really?
I have a big theory that like if we replace the letters with like a magic box, kids would be less intimidated by it, right, for variables. And I think that's awesome.
Well, come to our classroom anytime.
Okay, next we'll have the 9th grade induction team.
Hi, I'm Brenda Hagan, one of the assistant principals at the high school.
And I'm Heather Mendoza. I'm the other assistant principal at the high school. So we wanted to spend some time this summer looking at the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. We know it's talked about a lot. It's in the strategic plan. And, you know, having been here for a number of years, it gets looked at in different ways at different times. So this seemed like a good time to look again at what we have going on. So we definitely understand that there's unique needs and challenges of coming, you know, not very far across the walkway from one school to the other. There's a lot of different things that happen at the high school, a lot more independence. And we're trying to work with teachers to figure out where students are meeting us and where we're taking them from there. So we worked this summer with about 10 teachers. There were department chairs. There was a teacher from just about every department, a school counselor, and the two of us, in trying to figure out what are the needs of the students that are coming into our building on the first day of school. So we talked about just the different expectations, adjusting to having 7 teachers who aren't anchored to a cluster model, time management, executive functioning, communication. We had a really very spirited conversation this summer, which was great. We talked about the goals that we as a team decided to tackle. So ways to support students as they come into the building in their academic, social, and emotional needs. Looking for opportunities to help support students with more consistency in what they're seeing from Google Classroom to Google Classroom. Making sure that the way that information gets posted looks similar so that kids and then in turn their families aren't trying to wind through a maze. I think we've increased the amount of communication, but I think that can also, make things confusing because I think there's so much information available sometimes. So just making sure we're anchoring and sharing information as in the best ways possible. So we really wanted to make sure that the whole staff who's working with and there's about 46 teachers who work with 9th graders, just for different reasons. We want to make sure they all are building the relationships with their students in that time. The first term just ended, and it's really important to us that the relationship is at the forefront of what happens with all of our students. But we want to make sure our freshmen feel very welcomed. So we discussed the vision of the 9th grader. So seeing the importance of study skills and time management and just their own progress in those areas. Starting their self-advocacy skills, communicating effectively, utilizing their extra time, which a lot of kids don't say they have extra time, but the time that we give them now during flex or after school when they're waiting for their sport or their theater society to start, finding ways for kids to feel connected to school, and then still, I think finding balance is still an important piece for all of our students, but freshmen in particular, as they're being greeted with lots of different messages as they come into our building.
So some of the outcomes of the day, one of them was, focusing the beginning of the year on the induction transition process and just really being transparent with the 9th graders. Like, this is what we're doing. We are transitioning you, we are acclimating you. It's a new building, new set of teachers. So just being more kind of transparent and talking about that with the 9th graders. We talked about dividing and conquering the departments, about like each department took a piece of it. So like the English department said they would focus in the first term on different forms of note-taking. The science department, how to navigate Google Classroom a little differently at the high school. And math department took on like how to write an email in a professional manner to your teacher or to anyone. So, we came up with, and this kind of spilled into the beginning of this term. We've been having this ongoing meetings with 9th grade teachers to involve more than the 10 that were with us in the summer. But really focusing on consistent expectations in terms of like posting homework. Like, so, teachers at the high school sometimes were post it with different due dates. So somebody would have it do it, by midnight, just because that's kind of where it defaults with Google Classroom. Others would be by 7:30 in the morning. The other ones were by class time. So now all the 9th grade teachers are posting homework so that it's due by the time the class starts. So, kids were saying to us when we met with them that, and I'm sure Molly can attest to this, that, if they have an early flex in the morning and their homework's not due until last period, they could use that time in the morning to do it. But if it was due at 7:30 in the morning, they couldn't do that. So 9th grade teachers agree to all kind of do it the same way, which I think the kids are grateful for. So this, in the future, we wanted to talk more about using consistent terminology. Like, everybody's teaching writing, but, English does it this way, social studies might do it this way, science does it this way. So things that, I don't want to go on and on, but things that we were going to continue our conversations with teachers. We meet every, 3 weeks or so. Our next topic is, we talked about a lot of things,
Yeah.
but our
Like
next,
homework
Oh, yeah.
and just different kind of unifying themes that will work for all of the freshman teachers. So we have elective teachers. It's not just academic teachers that we've been including. We've been including, all the art teachers, and we now have an email list to communicate regularly with them.
Talk
Next
about-
time is behavior.
classroom management, collaborative problem solving.
Yep.
And we're kind of keep on ongoing meeting with, we've been grabbing, sounds weird. We've been meeting with different groups of ninth graders. Don't laugh at me. And just kind of asking them, how's it going? How is your, transition? Do you know how to use Flex? Do you know how to use all this technology? So it's been really helpful to kind of see where they are, and we can give that feedback to teachers with different groups of freshmen. So. I think it's been really positive. I've really enjoyed at these meetings that we're having with the teachers, like all the interdisciplinary conversations that they're having. We're putting them into groups, like really just curious, like, how do you do this? How do you assess homework? Anyway, just like different instructional practices. How do you teach reading? It's really nice just watching these, as we step back, these authentic conversations taking place. So it's been very positive. in my opinion.
And the meetings we've had with freshmen have been very positive as well. And I wouldn't just say that if it wasn't true, because I've met with plenty of students and they haven't been pleasant, but these meetings have been very pleasant, where the students seem happy. They've adjusted more quickly than I think I would have expected, and I don't know that this is necessarily the reason, but it's been nice, just having these conversations and getting to know the freshmen for the past couple of weeks. So
So thank you for supporting our work
Yeah.
in the summer. Yes.
My question, I don't think you mentioned it, but is about grading consistencies or inconsistencies. So coming as a ninth grader right now, it's real, and we're thinking about college and communities like this, whatever. So do you have conversations across departments or within departments where is error analysis possible, or are terms weighted the same way in all your departments?
So that is actually work that Christine has been leading us through the past year or so.
couple of years.
So it's been a building-wide discussion, so not only with ninth grade. So within the departments, they're kind of all the courses of the same, ninth grade English kind of all grade the same and weight the same. But we have kind of ongoing this year, more discussions about retakes and other things like that. So so that's a larger.
But it tends to be more department-based right now, but
There is some consistency within departments. So
yeah.
Molly's career in English is kind of the
Yeah.
same 9 through 12.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
I'm pretty interested in the communication homeschool connection part of it, and when you were talking about the Google Classroom maze you mentioned earlier, and that you were answering some of those questions, because my concern would be consistency across the curriculum, kind of similar to what Will was alluding to, and the ability, the expectations of the use of that technology, and I appreciate the email piece. Google Classroom, does every teacher use the Google Classroom gradebook for at least the purposes of students being able to use their executive functioning to organize their work and what's due using
Yeah.
the to-do lists?
So
fairly
the to-do
consistently?
list we've talked about a lot.
A lot.
Because,
But all of us as professionals probably use our calendar to
Yes.
line up, right? And if
Yeah,
we're
or
not
even a
training our
planner.
students to do it that way.
Yeah, so we talked a lot with teachers about, do we bring back the old school planner with the, the agenda? But it's funny, it depends on which kids you ask. But we had a whole group of freshmen that we asked, about 15 of them, that were like, we would never use a planner. We use a to-do list in Google Classroom. Everything goes in there, and it's my to-do list. It's my planner. So even the tests go in as a item to do because the date is there.
Yeah.
So most kids, correct me if I'm wrong, are saying that they really like that. So ninth grade teachers have heard loud and clear, like that's what they prefer. We're still kind of playing with the idea of bringing back the planner as an option, because when they graduate from school, they're not going to have a Google Classroom to-do list. So, you know,
Well,
where we,
they'll have another tool.
yeah,
Like,
they'll have another
like,
tool, a
Office, or they
calendar.
may have Google in their professional.
Yeah,
so-
yeah. So we want to try to provide options without confusing kids. You know, so we're trying to figure out the right way to.
Well, I mean, the consistency thing is a huge deal.
Yeah,
You know, you can't have multiple LMSs or a rogue web page that some teacher has. And as much as I appreciate the creativity, it's going to just confuse matters. And so I think that's something that I've heard in the past since I've been here. It's something in my professional life that have pushed for and implemented. And I guess the next part of that you mentioned about email and communication. And this might be a more philosophical district question. Has there been conversations about a more comprehensive communication tool where, because for parent connection and parent involvement, Google Classroom is garbage. So, and I don't mind saying that publicly because it is garbage. It was never designed that way. It's not, and as far as email and collaboration goes, email is terrible as well. So I didn't know if there are other tools out there. I didn't know if there was conversations, at least at the high school level or middle school level, about being able to enhance that homeschool connection, you know, with some other tool of that manner. Because I think that would, email's fine, but you know, we all know that you know, for quick updating of saying, hey, I had Leo in the first period today, and he seems a little off. You know, I want to fire it off to the team. You know, like it might be more of a middle school thing, right? But maybe the guidance, just so the guidance counselor's aware, right? You know, if it were in an email, I feel like that's, you know, it's going to be less immediate than it would be, say, if there was another messaging system that would allow you to have quick access to, you know, to mom or dad. You know, in a school district I'm working with now, they're using something called Parent Square that does something very similar. And I've seen a couple of others out there that do something like that, have really kind of revolutionized that connection back and forth. I didn't know if that was.
Yeah, I think that's going to be part of our communications audit that we're doing. So we're looking at internal and external communication and looking at, because I know that we heard through the focus groups and through the surveys that if you're an elementary parent and you have multiple kids in elementary, there's maybe 2 or 3 different platforms elementary teachers are currently using, and it gets confusing from a parent perspective.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at it after the recommendations come out of this, you know, review of our communication, to look at one platform district-wide, or at least one for secondary, one for elementary, so that it makes it easier for parents.
It can
to make
replace some of the stuff that we're already paying for too, I think, yeah.
For sure.
And then thank you for all the work. I mean, this is excellent work. I hope I didn't sound too critical.
No, that's super
But
interesting.
it's extremely
Yeah.
important, you know, and I think it is it could be a make or break of, you know, how someone views their high school experience, right? And like you said, that 9th grade experience, if they're coming in and the first 3 months is terrible, you know, it may take the next year to climb out of that mindset that, you know, this is not a place for me. I don't really like being here. I can't be successful. You know, and I think that's if the delivery and stuff is all organized, and I love the common language piece too. I think that's excellent as well. That'd be helpful for parents as well. So.
We definitely hear a lot about the 8th to 9th transition as school committee members, so I do appreciate that you guys have taken this on and that this has been approved as a project. So thank you on behalf of our community. I'm interested to understand, and I recognize that we're, you know, in some ways the infancy of this. What are the things we're going to be looking for assessment and iteration for next year's class?
I don't understand the question.
Assessment in regards to, like, we know that there was a transition challenge. It's getting better and trending in the right direction. Like, do we have any sort of parameters or metrics that we're going to be looking at to see, like, they're trending in the direction we want them to?
Better, I guess.
Yeah.
So we've surveyed the kids at the end of last year, the 9th graders, to kind of give us some things to think about for the summer. So we're kind of keeping data on these focus groups and notes in the fall. So we're, you know, kind of planning to keep on meeting with different groups of friends with freshmen to meet as many as possible. And then in the spring, we asked them, like, if you knew then what you know now, what would, you know, so it helped us kind of talk about, we identified homework, we identified those kind of target areas. So, you know, we're big fans of feedback forms of all kinds. And we get kind of good responses.
We have
Um,
Panoramic
Yep,
in
oh, right.
February too, so we're
Right,
doing the
okay.
belonging survey for Panorama to get a sense, we can compare to last year's.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then sorry, Tiffany,
Sorry,
add.
one more thing to add also.
Sure,
We
go
have
ahead.
our partnership with Boston College, the Collaborative Fellows Grant, who's also gathering that information and specifically surveying students and in the 8th grade and 9th grade to really measure a bunch of those things as well.
Okay. And then the kind of the tactics I guess you've implemented right now are very 9th grade specific. I'm curious how 8th grade is being involved in this conversation and what things are happening at the 8th grade level to help prep the 8th graders before they get there.
I was actually gonna ask that question. Is there
Yeah.
Is
so-
there anything, is that part
breaking
of the
down the walls? Do
conversation?
you guys
What does
lower
that
the
look like?
drawbridge and
So
allow them to go over?
we've talked a lot about this and that's been kind of involved in these conversations too. And, you know, we've talked with department heads too about like a vertical conversation within their kind of 6 to 12 department. So that was kind of like the next step in, you know, the process, but.
And I think we wanted to make sure that our teachers were taking responsibility for where they met the kids. So, you know, is there other things or are there other things that could be done? You know, the conversation is going to continue, you know, for as long as I'm here. You know, where we're still talking about the transition from 8th to 9th and then, you know, then the transition from high school to college. You know, there's a lot of transitions in Medfield, so lots to talk about. But I think, you know, we wanted to make sure that our teachers were meeting kids where we were getting them from Blake, and then I think that'll be a chapter 2 or 3 of, you know, again, and we've had different times where we've had, you know, very forced, doesn't sound nice, but conversations between the 8th grade teachers and the 9th grade teachers, because there are myths that exist on both sides.
Right.
And we just try and demyth as often as we can.
Okay.
So,
And then just like curious from like a personal standpoint, I'm guessing you guys had some inklings on some of the things that were going to come out of the surveying that you did of the 9th graders. Were there anything that you were surprised by or anything that rose to the top that you weren't expecting to be something that needed to be implemented?
I would have to look at it again. I mean, I think what came up was the consistency piece over and over again.
Okay.
So looking at those, and you know, Heather said spirited conversations because, you know, because when you've been teaching for a long time and you've found something that works, and then someone else has found something else that works, they're not necessarily bad, either one, it's just inconsistent.
Right.
So, you know, talking about, that's why we had a ton of time talking about philosophy and, you know, if this is what we all believe, what's the best way to get there? So the consistency piece, I think, is a big stress reliever for 9th grade. So that's what we're trying to tackle first.
Okay.
I agree with you guys both talked about. I was going to ask the same thing. One, thank you, because I think I hear that we hear about it a lot as well. That is the topic of the walking the dog. Okay, oh, you're on the school committee. So, you know, that is very similar. I was going to say, I love the idea of, you know, math's going to take on this one thing to help. And I do love the idea of also saying, hey, that's a 8th grade math and 9th grade math. You know, for example, if you said, hey, we're going to work on note taking, you know, it just seems to me like that's a logical, that the transition is a two-way, you know, where you're coming from and where you're going to. I was going to see Molly if there's any comments you had. What, do you remember?
It's a safe space, Molly. It's okay.
Molly, we talk a lot with Molly.
yeah, yeah,
See Molly every day.
yeah, every day.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty consistent. I would agree. Like, I'm thinking about like my 4 years, and within each department, I would say it's like the way, like all the science courses that I've taken, or the way like I learn and like the process of everything is very consistent. So like, I think it's important that the freshmen, it will kind of be like each subject's gonna be similar as they go through high school, which I think is nice. That's all.
I just want to push on one more thing. So you said you work to like build relationships with the kids, and then you talked about how math teachers teach them how to do the email and doing different life skills. Do our teachers have enough PD, well, so how are we building those relationships, and are the teachers being trained in how to build those relationships, right? Because there are teachers, there are a million different kinds of teachers, but if I put them in two buckets, there are people that love their subject, right? So it might be a little harder to build the relationships in that piece, and then there's people that kind of, this is gonna sound boring, I'll just leave it there, but there are teachers that love the kids and the subject is second, and that's just me, my personal thing, I'm saying, I've seen that in my career. So what are we doing to build the relationships, and do the teachers have enough support, and are they comfortable like building those relationships?
So kind of an underlayer of this work is the work that we've been doing with culturally responsive practices. So, basically all of last year, during faculty meetings, we looked at Zarena Hammond's work, culturally responsive teaching the brain, and took lessons out of that and did a lot of work about building relationships. It's something we always talk about at the beginning faculty meetings too. I don't think you can ever have too much of that. So more PD on that would be amazing. Next presentation.
I also, in our advisory model, we have advisory once every 8 days. It's the, kids expected on day one that they're going to have something. This year, we tried to make an effort to have fewer paperwork-based items and more, relationship building things, especially for the first term, which I think has been helpful. All of our 9th grade advisory teachers do not teach freshmen, and we do that on purpose, so that there's an adult who doesn't grade them, doesn't assess them, who they can build a relationship with. And it's a group of 13 or 14 students. So that's been helpful as well. So Brenda and I have the opportunity to infuse lessons through that advisory as well, which has been a good part, another strength of our new schedule. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we have one more presentation, and the administrator's again. Sure, I'll introduce myself.
Nat and I met with a group of K through 12 teachers this summer. How many people do we have? 2 from each school, to look at how our work, how we could take the new strategic plan and the elements of belonging and homeschool connection and the parts that kind of overlapped with our culturally responsive vision statement, and how we could kind of flesh out some action steps for that. So on the left, you'll see the elements of the strategic plan having to do with belonging, DEI, aligning DEI efforts, and strengthening homeschool connection. And on the right column, you have elements of the vision statement that we approved last year that go along with that. So most of the time together, and this is kind of a blank template, but most of the time together we spent, or the teachers spent looking at specific, their current practices, and then what are some school-based action steps. So for example, in the promoting sense of belonging for all students, family, and staff, teachers, these are some examples, teachers talked about things that they could do or schools could do, eliciting student feedback via focus groups, purchasing flags that represent each family's background at the high school, providing equal opportunities to explore career paths in various fields, identifying possibilities for peer mentoring opportunities, etc. So they kind of went through each and had some really good ideas. One of, I don't know if I'm stealing your topic here, but one of the action steps is building like a building-based team in each school. That is kind of an offshoot of this amazing group that met in the summer. And we're still finding time to do that. Sorry, that's not your thing. But, I think a lot of the ideas on the strengthening the homeschool connection were amazing. The high school grade level, like student officers are looking for ways to involve families and parents in their events. And just recently, the senior class is having a dance on December 1st.
And all
And-
parents are invited.
No. They do not want them there.
Sure the kids love it.
But just, they sent out, this is such a little thing, but they sent out a sign up genius to, they need snacks and water. And I think that sign up genius was like filled in 5 minutes. Like parents are looking for opportunities to get involved, to volunteer. So we're talking to, more and more with the class officers about events and ways to kind of bring connections, and events in the school that are department based to bring parents in. So anyway, there's a lot of ideas. We need to now kind of get the building-based groups going. But a lot of excitement about this work, and much appreciated that it's kind of centered in the strategic plan as well.
Yeah, and I would agree and echo that just speaks just anecdotally about parents want to be involved, and it does get tricky. I mean, middle schoolers know part of their parents, completely age appropriate, but trying to figure out, and that's a lot of work we've been doing with PTO, is really thinking about how can we have our parents be involved and yet understand the developmental needs of kids who don't want them around at all. And so that's been a big piece of it too. And just one thing, prior to the R&D time, we had sent, we had a good problem too, because we have to limit the number of people that are involved. And we had over interest, which is a great problem to have. And we had sent a Google form ahead of time to help gather that data, which really helped from the cross section. And it was nice to pick out themes. And so just the next,
Yes, sorry.
that's okay. So this is just so what we had done after was sent a reflection to the team and asked for some feedback. And these are just some direct quotes from members of the team. One was, and I would say this is really thematic, that this is everyone's work. It shouldn't be taught in isolation, or, you know what, we'll take care of this in social studies, or we'll take care of this in our guidance classes, or we'll do a guidance unit, that really this is everyone's work. This was something that came out too, is this idea of identity. And that's a lot of the identity related work too, is who we are, that everyone should see themselves as, like Matt, you're saying, as a mathematician in my classroom. I don't want it to be just this type of identity, and really addressing some of the bias and stereotypes that we all bring each day. This was a big part too, that social emotional learning and culturally responsive practices are intertwined. It needs to be a thread line in and across the district, which touches on, very similar to the 8th and 9th grade transition, shared language and looking at the different buildings. And we don't want to recreate the wheel, and think about what's some of the language we're using with students and amongst staff. There's so much sort of edubabble, like terminology. It's like, well, what's the terminology that we feel like really represents for us as we go through? A lot about self-reflection too. We have an obligation to learn biases about ourselves. And it's been really interesting, actually, just recently with all the stuff about artificial intelligence and learning how much bias is just inherently within that, and how we have an obligation to teach kids about that as well, which has been really interesting. And then this is I think what's really hard, and this is very similar to the work we've done about social emotional learning. Oftentimes when we're talking about this, the term culturally responsive practices can feel like it's a new initiative. It may be new terminology, but that it's really not one more thing, but it feels as though it is. But this which came from one of the members saying it's pedagogically sound, research-based, comprehensive teaching practices. So really trying to embed that into all the work that we're doing on a day-to-day and month-to-month. So the next steps, and I know we've talked about this before, and all this work also really built off, and I want to thank again the R&D from the prior summer, when we had the team about 36 to 40 people across the district, and that's been really nice to work through. So a working group that we have, that people have expressed interest as building-based representation, trying to meet on a regular basis throughout, but also even on email, just to kind of share some ideas, which ties into what Brenda was talking about too, is the working groups at the schools, but also establishing, what's a total infancy stage, is a website creation for alignment and resources across the district from the staff end. And also we're looking at, and hopefully it will come to fruition, some universal professional development and training on culturally responsive practices on the January 23rd half day for the secondary level, 6 through 12. That would hopefully then build to elementary as well. And that is a huge piece that's come from our staff. I know, I think I mentioned this when we talked about a month ago about the goals that we have this year. Is not that it's universal, but I think the belief system and some of the work we did before is there. People understand the why. Now it's like, what can I do tomorrow in my class? I need some strategies. How do I address microaggressions? How do I have difficult conversations with kids? And some real strategies. So the work that we're hoping to do with some outside people, some experts in the field, is really building around some local case studies and just like, these are things that's happening here. How do we address it? And what does that look like? So that's sort of the work that we're looking at, and to implement strategies based off case studies. And that's a real request that's come from our staff, which is great, because it's not just saying, hey, this is good, this is important, it's a mandate. Our staff are saying we're thirsty for it. And we were just remarking on that the other day. So I really want to thank, and I echo Brenda, that I would say on behalf of like all staff, that really appreciate the priority and where it's put in the strategic plan, and it's holding us accountable for important work. So thank you.
It's been a nice evolution too. It started off as a small professional learning community of folks in the district, and it's really just grown to almost everything. So it's been a great evolution. You guys have done a wonderful job.
Yeah, we appreciate all this work. It's I think it's a privilege, to have this kind of availability to do that for all of us as a community, and having professionals like yourselves, having the priority amongst the school committee to prioritize that funding and that process, right? The idea of the process, and I guess one of my questions is the plan of establishing that common language, and then the scale, right? Because nothing happens in a year's time. Like when people were trying to use skillful teacher to build common language across the language, right? It took 4 or 5 years in one of my districts for us of consistently putting people through that process. So what is how do you see expediting that process, or what challenges do you see, or to help bring that to the forefront of things like common language and practice?
So one of and this is the things that we're talking about, is how can we build this into our current professional development, but also future professional development planning, and knowing too that I think when we have that, it's not optional too, that it's on our quote time, if you will, the sense of like using faculty mean time, using professional development time, and knowing that some of this work has already been slotted for this year. And so the hope for this professional development, and we're waiting to hear hopefully that some grant funding that will help us with this, is that a threefold process. That the beginning work prior to the professional development staff is to do it with the leadership team, the department chairs, to kind of help get some training beforehand, so that on that day we do that work. We've done similar work in other regards with assessment and grading, and this has been in practice. But then also doing some work with the community too, so like some presentation, meeting community outside too, so families understand. And I think because sometimes there's some speculation, and I'll just name it, is this critical race theory that we're teaching? What is this? And I think it's important to name some of the elephants in the room, to say this is what we're trying to do and the why, where that work is. So that's part of it. And then also thinking about this, we talked with the leadership team, thinking about what does that work get to the pre-K through 5, and also looking for future R&D, and then mapping, knowing that it's going to be chunking away at a time, and that we embed it into that work. I don't know if there's anything else, Brenda. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. I also love the tie-in on the last strategic plan. I think of that as evaluate next year. It's like we're beginning to remind ourselves, like the agenda item. So that's also, it is helpful to bring us back. Thank you so much.
Christine, I have just 2 quick questions. I'm curious, it says 26 approved projects. Do you know roughly how many projects were submitted, and do those get tabled for next year? Like what happens to the people who didn't make this year's cut?
There were only, I believe, and forgive me, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, there were 30 that were originally submitted. Of that, we were able to do those marriages and maps with the couple. For instance, this project started 2 years ago. It started with one germinating out of the elementary and the one germinating out of the high school. And then we ended up just matching people.
I see,
So that's
okay.
an example of that. And then there was a particular project that we were already doing the work, kicking off in the fall. So it just made sense for us just to say, thank you. We really appreciate your initiative, but we have time allotted for the fall. So it's our hope that we try to fund almost every single one. And so we do everything we can to make sure it happens.
Oftentimes you'll have, someone will submit a proposal and they'll have additional hours that when we sit down and figure it out, aren't needed. So we subtract the hours and we fund them for X amount as opposed to what they're asking for, just to try to make sure we have Michael actually sits there in the computer and we have the conversation and we say X amount of hours, and he just keeps adding and subtracting from the number until we get to 0. So we want to fund as many people as we can.
Okay. And then the high school flex schedule came out of this work? No? Yes, maybe?
More of SEL task force.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So what are some of the programs that have come out of this work that we would see right now? Like everything you're talking about is stuff that got implemented this year, and that's wonderful that we're able to do that quickly. But I'm curious if there's anything that got funded last year or the year before that we're seeing the fruition of this year as well.
For example, we have the college placement. And so
Okay.
we work in terms of the prep for that. We have a number of courses that launched out of this work that were just giving teachers an opportunity to really conceptualize on that piece as well. So those are just two examples, but I'm just thinking of like the digital literacy work that we've done in elementary. There's just a lot of different pieces that start in the summer and
Yeah.
fold right in.
Okay.
Does the R&D work? 'Cause I know some districts, you know, if there's a new course that's launching, a teacher or two may be coupled together to rewrite units for certain courses and other things. Is that separate from this? That's embedded right in this, right?
Yeah.
Those courses on.
Yeah, and that's a conversation that we've had a lot, is this a new course or is the teacher teaching a new, due to the teacher?
Right,
And that there's a real distinction. We put more of a priority on this as a new course.
right. Or just rewriting like old curriculum.
No,
too. Yeah.
without, and that's been part of it too, is like when frameworks change. I think about like, this is going back a number of years ago, but when, with the science frameworks, went to the next generation science standards, taking that approach and saying, all right, how are we going to embed that over 2 to 3
Right.
years? Or when math curricula changes,
So
we've
align.
got to kind of like
Yeah.
upload and kind of think about that spiral impact.
Yep.
I would say another thing, there are some also that come up as kind of like almost an annual, like I would say the Blake Advisory Program. Each year, we may be taking on something else. So that becomes kind of a standard theme. It's like, it's not, yes, it's the same title, but that work needs to be looked at every year
Right.
in that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just have two, I don't know what they are, comments, ideas, questions before y'all take off. The PD on 123, as we talk about meeting like our ninth graders where they are, that PD, I would challenge you to differentiate that as much as possible and meet the teachers where they are. Again, in my experience, there are teachers who have done a lot of work and some that haven't. And as we all know, if we're sitting in any class or any PD, you can lose one group or the other. So I just challenge you to do your best with that and try to meet your teachers where they are. And then with the PBL, with those awesome math portfolios, I can't believe you do 20 of them. But what's that?
It's a small, we're trying to go for a small hands-on activity that moves the curriculum and the learning through faster. So they look impressive because they are,
Yeah.
but they're mighty and small.
Yeah, but just with those,
Don't shortchange it.
yeah.
I'm kidding.
But one of my comment or challenge or whatever is some of the work in PBL is like having that audience at the end. And that might be a great opportunity to get those middle
Yeah.
school parents in and see the awesome stuff. And like, I bet you can't solve a system of equations and look what your kid can do. So just,
That's our
No,
next
that's a
summer
great point.
R&D, actually.
perfect.
Well, that's an excellent question. I mean, so is it the expectation that work is now going to be across all the 8th grade math like programs?
So we do in math, so the three of us are the three clusters on 8th grade. We teach all the 8th grade students and all the 8th grade students. And this is, whether you're a sub-separate, you're in one of our clusters, it doesn't matter. This goes for everybody. Our special educators have been involved in this. So it is all 8th grade math students. And this has been many years, and through the great, truly a collaboration between writing grants and the support of the district, it has allowed us to get to this point. And next summer, we want to bring in guest speakers and kind of bring the community in
And
a little.
I'll just take an opportunity to thank, like, we know that the middle school model is an expensive model, an instructional model, but I think this does help to align that a lot. And that's basically why I just want to thank the school committee again and the community for the support of that helps with that kind of unified approach. Because the common planning time really does help that, because I'll say Susan, Aaron, and Mary Ellen, I know where they are every time they have the prep period, they'll be together. I mean, looking at each other's papers, they're in the docs live teaching, saying, hey, we're all doing this and looking at that, so, yeah, constantly working.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you. I really thank the teachers here, as well as all the teachers who submitted proposals, and as well as you for the support. So thank you so much.
Chair, I would ask if we could skip the next agenda item and move it and have folks from outreach go next.
Support.
Thank you. So Kathy, Mary, and Kyle are here from Medfield Outreach. They're going to present to you a program that we support as a school district, raising the bar and keeping youth events substance-free. They had brought this to, I think, was it last spring when we first started looking at this? Last spring, and we've always had a great partnership with Medfield Outreach, and used to, formerly known as Medfield Youth Outreach. Thank you. And MCAP is also a big part of what they do with Medfield Cares About Prevention. So this seemed like it made a lot of sense. We actually did a Zoom with the founder of the organization from California, and they're looking to really bring this program on the East Coast. So it made a lot of sense to me, and I think they'll share some of the data of why it makes a lot of sense. But thanks so much for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
We got our mailer today too, by the way.
Oh, good. So I just want to say thank you for making the time for us this evening. I'm Kathy McDonald, the Director of Medfield Outreach, and I'm going to let the spotlight shine on these two. These are two of our prevention workers, and as Dr. Marsden had mentioned, one of the major components of what Medfield Outreach does is prevention work. We also do clinical support, counseling, referrals to services, and a whole array of needs-based services. So just to give you a little framing about what we do, but tonight we're here to roll out a super exciting initiative. So, Mary?
Kyler, why don't you introduce yourself and get that screen set up?
Okay, can I get permission to share my screen?
Do you want a Mac or you want a PC?
I'm on a PC.
We'll just share the screen there.
We have the handout, so that's fine.
Okay, if you got the handout.
What name are you logged under for the
Outreach.
outreach?
Thank you. I guess while we're getting that set up, I'll just introduce myself. My name's Kyler. I'm a part-time prevention coordinator here at Medfield Outreach. Medfield Cares About Prevention. I've been here since last November, so right at a year. I'll let Mary introduce yourself.
So my name is Mary Haas. I'm the other prevention coordinator at Medfield Outreach. I've been here for maybe 4 years, somewhere around there. We're both here on, we're here because of a DFC grant, which is Drug Free Communities Grant through the CDC. So do you want to, can we figure out how to share the screen? Or?
Yeah, do I have permission yet?
Under Zoom, who you logged in as? I'm not seeing outreach in the Zoom.
It should be.
Oh, you know why? Because it's not a school account, it's a private account. That's what we paid out of.
No, we can move them over, but I'm just seeing the attendees who are logged into Zoom. I don't see outreach logged in.
Is there anyone named Tyler?
What's that?
Tyler with a 10?
Can you share that presentation?
I think, you know what you're logged into Zoom as?
Yeah, I was logging into the Outreach account.
It says.
I think the fact that we have it in front of us is fine, really.
Yeah, I think they want to share it with the folks at home. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Is there
I don't see it on Zoom.
This is shocking enough.
Gotcha. All right, let me log in.
Or and for
YouTube, I can't see what we have now.
Sure.
Let me see.
There might be two.
Yeah. All right, let me reach mine.
I only see the one pager in our packet. So.
Yeah, no, you would, what I'm saying is, oh, and just last time, and then we'll round it. Is he allowed to share or not?
Yeah, but this isn't in the.
All right, I should be on now.
He's asking
If
me
you,
to share my screen.
And then I was saying, yeah, maybe then just, if Michelle could share it, if he's,
But
you said,
Michelle's right, you only have the one page.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't see it.
Oh.
Is that you?
I mean, once in a while,
Yeah,
I troubleshoot technical issues. It's the day in the job here.
here we go. Just panelist. Okay.
And when we're really stuck, we go to I like the notebook only. It's
That's
solid.
why I'm glad we printed it out for you.
All right. All right, here we go. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
So, somebody on Zoom, Owen, can you see our screen on Zoom? Oh, yes, I can
Can
see
you
that.
see?
now a little bit.
Can you see it?
Okay.
Thumbs up?
Hello again. Is everyone ready?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So thank you all for having us here tonight. So we're here, as Dr. Marsden mentioned, to talk about raising the bar. So first, a little bit background. Okay, just a quick. Okay, so just to kind of give you a little bit more information about what Kathy spoke about. So Kyler and I are both employees of Medfield Outreach, and through Medfield Outreach, we do our prevention work in a variety of ways. One is direct to youth. We do some school programming, but we also do a lot of community work. And one of those arms is a coalition called Medfield Cares About Prevention. You got a mailer probably today. If you have anyone in your household under 21 and you live in Medfield, you got a mailer to fill out a survey. So this is my plug for the parent survey. Please fill it out. And as I mentioned earlier, our work is funded through a drug-free communities grant provided to us by the federal government through the CDC. So a little bit about, so this shouldn't be new information to folks. This is just one slide to talk to you a little bit about kind of why we're proposing raising the bar, and it speaks a little bit to why we have the grant itself. So you'll see here, this is a graph from the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey. Most recent data we have was back in 2021. It shows alcohol use among Medfield high school students as compared to those in the Metro West region. So you see, we are the light purple and Metro West is the dark purple. So this information is similar to the one that actually were the reason we were awarded the grant. We don't have information on here from the middle school. Our numbers are comparatively low to the rest of the region, so that's great news. Let's see. So just to put it into context, this slide here is from the CDC. It talks a little bit about some of the outcomes associated with folks who drink alcohol or use other substances at a younger age. So there are many kind of not so favorable outcomes that can come about as a result of youth and underage drinking. I'm not going to go through them all. So there are many here. School problems, violence, other things. It actually changes your brain, right? As a developing brain is impacted by substances and alcohol at a different kind of rate. And then you'll see at the bottom here, it says that the risk of youth experiencing these problems is greater for those who binge drink than those who do not binge drink. And that is definitely, if we go back here, our binge drinking rates are actually 25% in Medfield. 25% of Medfield high school students have binge drank within the last 30 days.
Can you define that for us?
Yes, binge drinking is consuming 4+ drinks in a row for females and 5+ drinks in a row for males. So that's like your average party, right? Generally, when you think of those high school parties where alcohol is served. And then also at this bottom line here, it mentions that early initiation of drinking is associated with the development of alcohol use disorder and other substance use disorders later in life. And so that brings us to this slide here. I think that this is really impactful visual. The message here is to delay, delay, delay. The word in prevention and substance use prevention is wait, right? Wait past 21, wait to 25 if you can, right? Your brain is not fully developed and it does take a toll. So you'll see here 45% of folks who began drinking at age 14 developed a substance use disorder, an alcohol use disorder later on in life. Whereas beginning drinking at age 18, that was reduced to 15%. So this is a little bit more as to why we're proposing this initiative. So
just one question. Is that, when I was younger, they didn't necessarily say the age like really delay. Is that newer science?
Yes.
I mean, I think it really is helpful in conversations I have with my
Yes.
children. But is it like how new is it? Like when did that?
Well, I'd say, so I think, and Kyler, I'll let you speak to this too if you have something, but I think prevention work, especially as it relates to substance use prevention, has developed immensely over the past, 20 years or so. I think as we learn more about the adolescent brain, it impacts kind of the way we approach this work. And also as we have more tracking over time as to how outcomes actually play out. I think that information is here. So I like to think a bit about how when my parents were younger, you didn't wear helmets when you rode your bike. But now, there are laws about it. You have to, and same with seatbelts. So this sort of thing just develops over time. Do you have any? Kyler's actually in school for public health and epidemiology, so he's a good one to ask some data questions. Do you have any information?
Yeah, I think everything you said. I think that science has progressed a lot in the past, several decades. It's not new in the sense where it's, it's kind of settled now that early initiation of any substance use really increases your lifetime risk of developing a substance use disorder. The reward systems in your brain are still developing, and adding substance use into the mix can kind of alter the trajectories of those developments and put you at risk for all types of negative health outcomes. So
yeah, it's not disputed, and I think also it's easier to talk about delay when we know that a lot of these substances are legal, right? So the message is it's not necessarily realistic to say abstain, right? Because I know the World Health Organization, right, came out not so long ago saying no amount of wine is safe, right? I don't know if you all heard that, but they did. And so, but how realistic is it to say never drink alcohol, even though it's marketed to you and it's legal and, a little bit, it's up to you. So I think this idea of delay is really important because it extends the messaging and who it impacts as well. All right. So how do we do this? The prevention science this field is huge. There's a lot of information about ways to impact youth substance use and actually prevent underage drinking and other substances. But we're here tonight talking about raising the bar. So this is in relation to adult attitudes and behaviors. So I think there are two takeaways we want you all to take away tonight. One is that permissiveness, parent and adult permissiveness around youth alcohol use and other substances, but tonight alcohol use, makes a difference. So I know all you guys out there, I have a 5-year-old, so I'm not there yet, luckily, but you sometimes think your teenagers are not listening to you. They are, right? So we have this data point from 2018 that says over 70% of Medfield High School students reported that when deciding whether or not to drink alcohol, it was very important or somewhat important if their parents did not approve of them drinking. So peers matter, but the data shows that at least in this 2018 Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, parents mattered even more so. We don't have the 2021 data on this because the question wasn't in the 2021 and was. The other piece here is modeling, and this is kind of a little bit more directly related to the campaign. Research shows that parent substance use contributes to youth substance use, right? So how your parents behave really impacts how you will and do behave. Also, we understand now that children start thinking positively about alcohol at a young age. If you think about all the messages that they're receiving from marketing, from the larger world, just from, watching movies, right? There's a lot of messaging coming out at them about substances, including alcohol. And so modeling becomes even more important as we're looking to kind of combat those commercials on TV every time you're watching a sporting event, or the movies about the high school party that aren't actually the norm, but portray it to be a space where there's a lot of underage alcohol and other substance use. So now to the main event. What is raising the bar, and what does that mean for the Medfield Public Schools? So we had given you all, the folks here, a question and answer, kind of a quick fact sheet on what raising the bar is. I'm going to go over it a little bit tonight, and you can, if you have any questions, we can talk about those. So this Raising the Bar is a townwide initiative meant to keep youth-focused events substance-free. So as Dr. Marsden mentioned, we licensed this from Marin County in California. We're looking for ways to impact adult behavior and modeling, as we know that's really important among our young people in Medfield, as well as nationally and globally. And I kind of stumbled upon this and thought this might be a good fit for us. So we licensed their campaign, including this nice little logo in the corner. The select board has signed the licensing agreement. So the point really here is to promote healthy modeling among adults to ease that start of the conversation around substance use kind of as a community, and to change some social norms around the consumption of alcohol and other substances in order to create a safe and positive environment for young people so they can have those more positive outcomes and thrive. So what does that mean? So the initiative involves building awareness and promoting healthy adult modeling. So that comes in a few forms. So one of those ways is by actually hanging signage about raising the bar. It'll say raising the bar keeps youth events substance free, with a link to more information about it. So that again, it begins that conversation between folks. Like, what does that mean? Let's look it up. Did you know about this? You know, and just kind of lets people kind of talk about these things and think about them on their own terms. But in addition, as a participating school, you all would send out letters to parents and caregivers at the beginning of each year, and also around the start of different school affiliated activities, inviting parents and guardians to not use substances, not offer substances, and not use substances really at any school affiliated event where has a youth focus. So that includes things like the football game, right? No tailgating, for example. But it also includes things like there's a debate club field trip over the weekend, and so the parents aren't using substances on that trip. Again, just to model. It doesn't even try to address folks drinking right on their own terms, because we're not saying, we're not prohibitionists here. What we're just saying is when we're at this place where it's a youth-focused event, let's keep it youth-focused. Let's show these folks that we can have fun without substances, and we don't need it to have a good time. It also, extends to prom and pre-prom parties. So it would kind of be with any youth-focused event that's affiliated with a school. So that would be the expectations, or those are, I guess, the expectations among the Medfield Public Schools. And then what we'll do is we'll provide signage, we'll provide support, we can be there to answer questions, we have information on our website. We also have the letter templates, which can be edited to kind of meet the needs of the school. And then we can also provide talking points, a Q&A if you needed a presentation or something like that. That would be how we would be able to support an interface. I think at this point it makes sense to see if anyone has any questions or anything about raising the bar or anything else we need brought up.
And one I think of is, letters. One, sincerely thank you. I'd heard about this. Dr. Marsden shared with us. Right on, like we need to do it. We need to start with us. I also, I kind of think about multi-pronged. I know time is tough, but like a presentation like this and asking to join a PTO meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially one that's well attended, or maybe like Nicole's all K through 12 or K through 8 PTO. That it's coming at them from different places.
That's a great idea.
Youth sports, different areas where it's not just the schools.
Right.
I think the school. I think it's a no-brainer. I think we're supportive. But, just thinking about that, that's what I think. Or alternatively, how else can we help? How can we help drive that multi-pronged?
Yeah, I would echo that as well, because I know that's something we talked about when Anna Mae was still here, that this is a community issue, right?
Definitely.
So I think it's one thing to ask schools to support this initiative, but I want to make sure that we're a part of the bigger conversation with the town, and that there's other community groups that are joining in to support this initiative, right?
Yes, I think that's hugely important. And that is our aim and our goal. We've already begun a conversation with a few different youth sports groups. We've reached out to Belforge to speak about it. Our goal is to have every youth-focused kind of organization or business be signed on to Raising the Bar.
Okay.
This is meant to be a community initiative. I think what you said is really important, that I think folks think about the schools as solving all young people's problems because they tend to have them for a lot of hours in the day and kind of in their lives. And as a community kind of focused, we focus on all aspects of things that impact youth substance use. And we first and foremost understand exactly what you're saying, that the schools is one space, but it's not all the spaces, right? You guys play a role, but you don't play all the roles. And it really, our coalition is made up of 12 sectors throughout the community for that reason, right? This is not a school issue, this is a community issue. And I think that's something that we completely understand. And you guys play a big role in leading the community. And so I think having you all sign on is good, it's good to have in our pockets. So
Right.
the schools did it, and it can
Right.
help us really kind of, push other people to think about signing up. So
Other question about, who does Chris Herring talk to? Our whole high school or just the seniors or
Juniors.
juniors and seniors?
Just-
Have you all
Juniors,
seen this
juniors.
presentation?
I think
So I thought like
Forget.
15 years ago or
I think it's
something, because that's a place where all the kids are in, like, the juniors and seniors are there. Does he talk about this new science of like delaying it?
Yeah.
Because like, I remember his presentation vaguely, I know who he is, I know kind of the story, but like, and I don't know if he'd be open to like, could you slip some of this in there? Like, maybe I'm like overstepping here, but like, if this new like delay thing is the new tactic, I'm just wondering if there's any room, if you guys or we reach out to him, because like we talk about, this is a parent initiative, community initiative, but like, that's a person that's gonna be in front of our kids talking about substance abuse. And there might be something there, because I don't know if he's been for the same presentation for 15 years or if it's evolved over
Well, I
time.
think it changed. I think one of the things that he does is that he tells his story from the point of view of that he started drinking really young,
Right.
and that how bad that was, and he cites some of this data. It's a pretty powerful presentation that he does
Yeah.
each time, it hits home for some kids, and we have to, do some support afterward for some kids, but I think, Chris it's been evolving. It's not the same thing every time.
Right. I just
But
didn't
that's
know if he
something
had
we-
any of the new data that like Kyler knows that
Yeah.
like could help make it even more powerful.
We typically talk to him beforehand, because he does one part he does do is a quick video, and he'll talk with us, so that's something I can mention to him as well.
Right. Might be an entry point to our juniors and seniors.
so I saw his presentation 2 years ago, and I had heard mixed things about it, so I was kind of excited to be there. And I think that what Dr. Samarson's saying is what happened. It is more of a storytelling. It
Right.
talks
That's
about
how I
how
remember
him
it.
starting early impacted this whole like snowball effect. And it is one approach. I think, what we did last year is we brought in someone named Stephen Hill, thank you, who came in, and he's more of a local guy. He had a similar sort of story, but he is very steeped in prevention work. He understands the science behind it. He's a lawyer now, and he also had a parent component. We have trouble getting parents to the table, as I'm sure you all can potentially understand. So I think there's a lot of different approaches. I also think it's worth noting that prevention science says that one-stop shop is not effective. So it works really short term, right? If it happens right before prom, it's probably pretty protective, like for prom.
Stephen Hill, I think he was relatable from a Medfield student perspective. He was like them, multi-sport captain, raised in a good family, two-parent home, affluent, like things were going well in his life. And he went off course, very different from then started drinking at 12. So he was, I think, more relatable. But I think our MLAS data shows that 11th grade might be too late to be
I
giving
think it
messages. We might want to get that message out earlier.
Yeah, they say nine, you should be talking about this stuff at 9 years old. And I don't know if that's necessarily something the school.
In a developmental program.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, I'm just scared.
I'm just trying to think of Chris with 9-year-olds. I'm not sure that would be.
Yeah, no, not Chris.
That's where my brain went
I
too.
also
I'm like,
think, Kyler and I do this work kind of all day long, and I think one of the things we've found, which we've been actually speaking to different folks about, is some good curriculum that aligns with the new standards for wellness that addresses substance use, and it starts at kindergarten, but it doesn't talk about drugs and alcohol necessarily. It talks about how to make decisions, how to find out who you are and go from A to B, how to like navigate your life and be resilient, but also be able to say no. And then when it's age appropriate, how to talk about how to understand what alcohol does to your body, while also being able to navigate your friendships and and understand practice those techniques as refusal skills. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here. I don't know if any of you had the chance to come and see our screenagers under the influence screening, which was 2 weeks ago.
We had a meeting.
We had a meeting.
We were-
Oh, yeah. Dang, that was the worst. But we have a video from Medfield TV of the panel. So I think that was really impactful. It had doctors and all sorts of folks on there. And Kathy moderated it. So I think we're trying to do the work to come in at all different angles, because Chris Heron or Stephen Hell works for some folks, but like you mentioned, that those one-time things make an impact for a short period of time, and it's more like, how can we talk about things that put folks at risk or protect them from using substances, and kind of promote the protective factors and reduce those risk factors overall. So we're happy to come back and talk more.
Yeah, just
that was front of mind for me.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, just one comment. I think the target here, being the adults, is appropriate. I happened to see Chris outside of school, outside of Medfield a couple of years ago. It was students and parents, and he went after the parents. He said, look, the winter time, I probably would have had 3 or 4 nights a week if I wasn't in so-and-so's basement.
Yep.
And it was strong in that room when he said, don't do it, don't allow that hosting. So that, I think this is spot on. I think some of that was, he originally did that at Medfield, where we invited parents and no one should. That's compelling, provided parents are showing up.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of competing topics for parents' attention, and unless I think you have a direct connection with someone who's living with a substance use disorder, or you understand the outcomes, it doesn't always feel kind of front of mind. So I think that some of our tactics try to reach parents where they're at, but I think this is one of those opportunities to kind of deepen that conversation and allow folks to self-reflect.
I know what we've said with MCAT for years is that we should be really targeting elementary parents for this stuff.
Yep.
And trying to get them involved, to get them on board, and they understand that you blink of an eye, your kid's going to be at this age level. You're going to have to deal with that kind of thing. I was just thinking too about Dr. Ruth Bote, who came 6, 7 years ago now. She was pretty powerful. Man, we had a good group of parents that night.
Yeah.
I mean, probably 60 or 70 parents. So that'd be maybe a nice one to bring back. She was fantastic.
Well, and we know that whenever the school supports what we do and sends out communications about it and shows up for it, it makes a difference in our attendance numbers and the reach, because
The
folks are
retweets.
looking you all.
The retweets.
The retweets, oh, they're the best. I'm like, can you please? Is it possible to share the screen one more time? I just want to pull up that last slide for you all. So this is for you here, but also for the folks at home. So I know you all received a mailer, but I think that this here on the right-hand side of the screen is really important. It reminds you about our parent survey that's just gone out. We're going to be doing this every 2 years in connection with the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey. The idea is to capture parent attitudes as they relate to substance use, so we can know kind of where to target our efforts. I hear you all talking about data and assessment. We do that constantly. We're always evaluating and programming and using evidence-based strategies. Also, you'll see here on the other side is our contact information. So we're always here. We call Medfield Outreach at any time. Well, maybe not any time. We're not there all the time, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Or send us an email, and we want to talk to folks. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you
very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so I think, Dr. Marsden, you were going to give us an update on the 2022-23 student enrollment.
In your materials, Chair, you had the October 1 enrollment for the district. You'll see that there's 2,504 kids in total. Last year at that October 1, we had 2,516, so 12 less this year than last year. One of the things that we're looking at too, and you'll see when we do the first round of the budget presentations in December, is that we're going to look at probably adding an additional teacher for full-day kindergarten next year. The expected kindergarten group coming in is larger than what we had this year, it'll be over 200. That's the projections. So we'll look at adding an additional kindergarten class next year to kind of make up for that. You'll also see on the data that this is the end of those small groups of kids coming through. You remember a few years ago when that group of those classes were going into middle school, and we looked at reducing middle school staffing at that point, and we didn't do that. So now that group is now graduating, that they're now sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So we'll have lots of large groups after that, as you can see. Everyone, the second grade being largest with 207 and fourth grade with 206, but everyone's right around 200 in all of our grade levels. But we're anticipating more than 200 in our kindergarten classes next year. And if we stick to the school committee's recommendation of 22 in those full day kindergarten classes, we'll need another teacher in that grade.
Do you have a classroom?
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
So we're going to probably have to take the teacher's room or something. We're Missy and I are still working on that to look at space. We're not sure where it's going to be, but we do have some other classrooms, but we don't have per se a dedicated kindergarten classroom that we can use. So we'll have to take another classroom. That's the plan, unless Leo can build modulars real quick. And we added the preschool at Wheelock this past year because we ran out of space there too. So.
Yeah.
I mean, there's modulars. I know I bring it up once a year. Is that an option?
I mean, we knew this was coming. That's why we talked about a 3, 4, 5 for the new school and making this a pre-K building and 1, 2 at Wheelock. So that was our plan all along. So we knew this was coming. Now we're going to kind of pivot and do a different plan. Any questions on enrollment or anything? Short topics.
I would say the only thing I've heard recently was about class size in second grade. Yeah, because of this some 23s and 24s, I guess, so a couple of them.
Yeah, so
But sorry, I heard that as well, but I'm just curious, the fourth graders are similar in size?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same size. So actually, second grade is within your recommendation guidelines.
Yeah.
The average class size is the 23, so that's what is recommended in there. There's one class that has 24, 25, and the others have 22 with an average of 23, which is what your guidelines say for grades 2 to 4. So we're within that capture area of what your policy states.
Yeah, just looking through the first and third, they're always going to be the lumpy, not lumpy, it's just larger. That's that I imagine always is something to get used to.
Well,
I think, one of the things that is, I think for parents, the parent that has concern around that is that they're used to having Memorial, we employ a lot of assistants in Memorial.
Right.
So we do that as classroom assistants in the kindergarten program, which, by the way, there are many districts that don't do that. I can't imagine running a kindergarten classroom without having a full-time assistant there. And there are lots of places that do it, but spend an hour in a kindergarten classroom and you'll be amazed that you absolutely need that extra person there. I would never recommend not having that. And we have additional folks in first grade as well, but not every single classroom, but assigned to every couple of classrooms. So that brings it down a little bit. That doesn't happen at Wheelock. So I think there's a little bit of move to more independence once you get into second and third grade at Wheelock, and we don't have the additional staffing. We have building substitutes that help out and teaching assistants for sure, but nothing that we have at Memorial.
No, I'm just scanning the numbers and wondering what's going to happen when they get to Dale.
Well, I think there's, we looked at the projections. We do have projections of classrooms in the coming years in the 230 range. So we do have those projections, and those are NESDEC ones. So we just sent in our NESDEC information. Was it last week, Andrea?
Yeah.
So last week or week before, so we should be getting the most recent ones. So as soon as we get them, we use those as part of the budget process. So once we get those, we'll be able to share them with you and put them on the website we did last year. But
this building project aside, has there been a conversation or should we start having conversation about the idea of portable classrooms, even if they are, attached to, say, Dale right the second, and then maybe moved to Memorial, if needed, as if this is actually the trend, with or without the building project.
Right.
It might be a really good conversation after December if we know we got back into MSBA or not, because I think that changes that's going to change a lot.
That's still 3 years, though.
I know, but
yeah, we could certainly, we looked at spacing over at Memorial, where to put them. We were looking at doing them on the preschool side, putting them over there detached if we needed to. We'd like to attach them to the building, but we thought We do it on the North Street side, that flat area over there would be a good spot, and there's a hookup for electricity and everything over there, so we've looked at all that. We just don't know, when we'll be able to fund that, and that'll be a capital expense, and
Yeah.
we gotta just take a look at the new numbers and see if that's gonna be something we're gonna need to do, but, I mean, clearly
We
we're
probably
running
have
out
to
of
lease
space.
them because the number would be really high. I'm sure they're very expensive now.
I mean, for the folks at home that are watching that say, well, when my kid was there, we had 3,100. You had 3,100, but you also had 28, 29, 30 kids in the classroom. We can go back to that. We can get back to we can house 3,000 kids. It's just that you're not gonna have the student to teacher ratio that you enjoy now. So there's a finite number of classrooms, right? And they're all being used. It's just, right now, there are less kids in than there were, 10 years ago when we had larger numbers.
You can't put 28 kids in a damn class. I mean,
They were.
you
They
can.
had, when they were 740 square foot classrooms, and there were, 28, 29 kids in there.
Like, maybe that's something to keep as a live
Yeah,
item, whether it's some research on lease opportunities, availability alone, I think is probably one of the major concerns.
Right.
Is just availability of those portable classrooms. So,
And there are a lot. I mean, you have to put them on real foundations too. It's
Yep.
not like you can just plop them down like people think. There's a
Yeah.
lot to that. As a
if you want them to
principal,
last, you have to put them
Yeah, I
down.
mean, as a principal, I put on 8 one summer. It's a lot.
Yep.
It's a lot to do that.
The project.
You want to move to superintendent goals?
Sure.
Okay.
So, in your materials, you have the updated goals, and this is really an outgrowth of conversations I had with Tim and Michelle. We talked a little bit about, how we're gonna mesh last year's goals and this year's goals. If you remember, on June 12th, I gave an update of the 22, 23, 23, 24 goals. And in that first paragraph, I added, with the completion of the new strategic plan, I think it makes sense to review the goals in October/November timeframe and adjust based on the initiatives identified in the new 5-year plan. So that's really what we're doing here, is taking a look at some of the initiatives that came out of the plan, and then there's a couple from last year that are in there as well. So happy to go through them or answer any questions, whatever you think, Tim. I'll go through each one, or I'll just answer questions. Either way works for me.
I reviewed it. I mean, I was actually, because I've seen these over a number of years. I think maybe it's because of the year we did strategic plan. Then you did, what is the target, what's the plan, carve out of the strategic plan, what do we want to do this year? We did additional study around what do we as a school committee want to do with embracing that. So what I found was the way it's, I want to be careful, there's great alignment, and it was very, what I see here is consistent with what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So I was pleased, because I have seen these sometimes where it's multiple pages, and I like the clarity of it. I think the one that I think I think it'll be very effective as we look towards the end of the year, the goal number 4. Right? Like that's broad.
Right, and I think it was meant to do that because each year, when I give you an update in September on the strategic priorities, then that will encompass number 4, right? So that would be focusing on whatever in September, whether it's through a workshop with you guys in August and the leadership team, whatever is decided at that point then becomes a priority for that year. So then it made sense for me to continue working on whatever those priorities are, in addition to what we have on the list.
If anyone else needs a minute, I'd seen it once or twice.
No,
The only one, I mean, this is for this year, or we're in the middle of is this like a 2-year cycle?
Right, so the middle of the 2-year, yeah.
So the middle of 2 years, so
Right.
mine would just be like, so this is by June, right? Just the professional practice goal with the one about communication. So it's internal, external communication plan by reviewing, implement any recommendations from an outside assessment. Like do we have an outside assessment happening yet?
We're just about there. Yeah.
We're about-
So it'll
Outside
be,
the plan.
yeah, so we would have the outside assessment done probably December, January timeframe, and then
Okay.
report in early spring with recommendations. So that will
Okay.
definitely be
I was the only one, just the timeline on that, the rest of them seem to make sense and align with our strategic plan.
Yeah, I think that to me is ambitious. I think that we've had other conversations. Let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Keyword comprehensive.
Right.
Comprehensive internal, external. I think so I think, I'm pleased with them. I think our job together effectively throw out with something.
Yep.
Right. Mhm.
No, so unless there's anything else, which is good. And we typically, I don't think we approve.
You can vote if you'd like, or you just give endorsement to, yeah. We've done it both ways while I've been here, so whatever you'd like to do is.
I mean, is the vote just to accept it?
Want to vote at the next meeting?
I think that protects Jeff.
Yeah, well, I don't, unless.
Do you want to have it on the agenda the next meeting and vote then? It's up to you, whatever you'd like.
I don't need to.
Part of my job is to help and
Yeah.
evaluate, and look and see is there angst. I think there's a couple other topics that I think everybody's, I see supportive.
They can be revisited at any time, but we could vote these in.
Yeah, I just vote now. Yeah, I would
I have to vote for them, sorry, I forget what the other option, you said vote or something else.
Oh, just push it to the next meeting.
Yeah, push to the next meeting.
I'm happy to vote on it. I think this covers a bunch of strategic plan and stuff to talk about.
I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent's performance goals as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And I had two versions. So other items since posting, I think is probably what we're going to talk about. Yeah, that's within the narrative. Is that right?
This is the newest version.
Okay.
That has that on it.
Okay, good. Yeah, and that I even the formatting, but so we updated the agenda to account for the resignation. And so I wanted to talk about that. I had a couple that I shared. So first I want to do is make sure we're all on the same page, because this is the first I've been a part of a resignation and what happens. So what happens, and Michelle and I have gone through this a couple of times, so correct me as I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But so resignation creates a vacancy within the committee. The school committee policies are not identical to all other committees in town. So sometimes people might ask, and even as we talked through that with the select board, our policies are they consistent with the Mass state laws? It creates a vacancy until the next general election. And then at the next general election, really the public will vote for a candidate to complete that term. Okay, so really we are going to be collaborating and voting with the select board to make an appointment. As soon as we can.
A temporary appointment
Yeah,
between
it's
now
a
and the
temporary
election.
appointment now until March 26th.
Right.
And then that term has 2 more years. And we did ask on this, so at the, and I think, Leo, your term is up. So when the public comes, they would be voting on 1 term for 2 years and 1 term for 3. So reading through, and it's in the packet, is policy BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment. And the steps I'm just oversimplifying rather than read. Notify the select board once that has occurred. The resignation came in yesterday, and we notified the select board yesterday. Then there's 7 days for the public to state their candidacy. And, so that says, hey, raise your hand, I'm interested in participating. We meet with the select board. Right now, I looked at their calendars. They have meetings on November 28th, as well as December 2nd. I think it's December 16th as well. But so we would theoretically meet with the select board, and we would vote collectively, and majority. One candidate has to get a majority. So if it was 3 for one candidate, 2 for one candidate, and 1-1, so it would be 7 people. We would iterate until at least one candidate has 4 votes. And then our job, and think of it almost like as the scope, is to really make the appointment for the period until the general election. Okay, so we want to think about it in that vein, just so that's what the appointment is. So it's a relatively short period, but there's a lot going on. So I think that is the process. I have a couple questions that I want us to think about, because as I go through it, I kind of think about, okay, so what's the most effective way to review the candidates? But before going through that, I just want to see if there's any questions as to what.
Well, I'm trying to recall how we did it in the past. We've done this twice now, Jeff, since I've been on. Just once? Okay.
Well, my question is just about, so people can throw their hat in the ring by emailing, like, what is our expectation? Like, if I just say, hey, I'm Will, I want to do it. Hey, I'm Michelle, like, is there a cover letter or a resume?
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it took a little, netting it out. That the process, though, is, it's clearly laid out in our policy manual. And we did also check, there's been some checking with MASC and whatnot. So that's the process. But that's immediately, how do we?
Someone showed up at one point and just said, I would do it, like, at the meeting that we were voting at. They could show up at that meeting and nominate themselves.
So that's what I think when we look at our policy, though, I don't think that is what I recognize that's what happened.
Yeah.
But I think because we're looking at our policy closely right now, and we've already published an end date, we're looking specifically for people who want to raise their hand by next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And then what we're going to talk about right now is the process to evaluate those individuals, so that ourselves and the select board can assess the information collectively and be able to vote for somebody to, sit in the seat from now until March. And then the public gets to
So I
decide
guess to
after
Will's
that.
point, for those people who are emailing, are we asking them for a cover letter or?
Yeah, that's what, so let me, that's kind of what I want is so what's the most effective way to review? My thought would be, are there 3 to 5 questions if it were a cover letter, or so we also, I work backwards. We did talk to MASC this morning, and we did some research with other towns. What I would say the MASC recommendation was bring the candidates forward for an interview as part of that meeting with the select board. Keep it net, it's not, it is an appointment for a relatively short period of time. Bring them forward for the interviews and then vote. That was at least what MASC said. And looking at other towns, we probably pulled up, I didn't go to all, but it seemed to be the general pattern is there's an application, the application has a series of questions. There's an ask to join an interview. And then
the interview is at the meeting, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, now
So
that's
that's
where my head went was.
We've had a lot of discussions today, because I think at the end of the day too, we want to make sure that everybody is being assessed the same way. So one of the things we talked about today was you can have an in-person interview, or you can ask a candidate, you can ask everybody the same questions. It can be 2, 3, or 4, 5, however many we want, and say, we want you to complete these questions by X date, and you can only do it on 1 page or 2 page or something like that, and giving everybody the same parameters for us and the select board to be able to evaluate them. So I think there's a couple different avenues we can think about in regards to how we're going to be able to get the information we need to appoint somebody temporarily, right? And there's a lot of different ways you can think about how you're going to be able to get that information. But I think it's important that we make sure we're being consistent with everybody who's throwing their hat in the ring.
In the interest of time, too, I would
Right.
think it needs also to be
Yes, because I talked to Marion today
somewhat
too.
streamlined.
Yeah, streamlined, and she said people can pull papers in mid-December is what she's shooting for.
For March.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to think about as well.
So if that's what we're talking about. I would say like, wait, do we have to do the interviews, or that was just recommended?
We don't.
Correct, recommended.
We
I would
can
say
decide.
like one-page cover letter, let's go.
Yeah, I'm with
Because
you.
we have a week, and then we have, that was the other thing I was gonna ask is on the date of when we're gonna vote, but it sounds like we have.
So the way the policy is, it's 7 days to
Notify.
get the list of candidates.
Right,
And then it's not crystal clear as to, you can take within reason.
yeah,
We thought it's 7 days from, with the Thanksgiving holiday works pretty well, that we at least have the candidates. And then what I wanted to leave today with was directionally, what are some questions we would want, whether it's interviews or, in an application. And then just make sure that the select board is also, I think they meet next Tuesday. So I was gonna try to talk to Pete or one of them and just say, hey, this is what the school committee is thinking of from a process perspective. Do you guys support it? And then I think we would target that December 2nd. Maybe we join the select board meeting.
I will say too, the select board also had I don't know if I have it open right now, they have a policy on appointments that I thought could be interesting for us
They
to
actually-
reference. I guess because there is a policy in place for another, executive branch of our town government that also does appointments and will be joining us to kind of look at their own guidelines and take some of that into,
yeah,
I looked at this earlier, if you guys want to look at this.
yeah. I just say, I don't want, it's a short appointment, and we have to kind of turn it around fast. I would say, my idea vote is like, tell all these people, if they put their name in, to write a 1 page on why they should do it. If you guys want to come up with questions and hash it out, we can do that, but I don't even think we
No,
need
I
to
don't-
complicate it or.
I
do
don't think we
interviews.
should overcomplicate it either.
Yeah, and I looked at a couple of them, like, it not overcomplicated.
You might
At
just
least
have,
have a
you
consistent
might just
view.
have a cover letter and ask for certain, certain items,
Like why
Well,
you
well,
wanna do
actually,
this?
no, I actually would rather them just, let's just ask for a cover letter. Because,
Okay, yeah,
and
so,
then
well,
what they
let me
choose to
just throw it
share.
out. Why
and then you-
interest in the position, qualifications, the position.
Because this isn't like an application for a job, and then here's why. Hear me out. This is driven by people's passion. That's why we're here. Okay, it's not financially motivated. It's civically motivated. So I think that allowing somebody to, with that in mind, share about themselves and let them figure out what's best to put into the letter, what they feel is important to go into a letter for this, for a message for this type of vacancy. To Will's point, like 1 page max. And I think that reflecting on what someone chooses to put in that writing, I think is important, right? Let them make that decision, right? And I think I know it sounds it may sound cryptic in the sense of, but it's not a formal interview per se.
Yeah, my debate was just a matter of, so if I get, there are candidates that raise their hand, which is, I wasn't sure what to expect. So my debate is just, if I read 3 or 4 of these 1 pagers, do I feel, again, it's appointment for a short period, do I feel comfortable that jump off the page, or do I want to say,
There'll be no shortage of other people's opinions as well.
We could ask them to send an optional resume, like not require it, but if they felt like that strengthened their case, I mean, I'm assuming most of these people have a resume handy, and that might be additional information that someone found helpful. I think I would want to, I agree with the 1 pager statement, but I do think there should be some direction around why you want this, because I think that goes in line with what you're saying. I am interested if you have qualifications that you feel would benefit you in this role, and then anything else you'd want us to know. I actually think those 3 parameters, like your why, your what, and anything else that we need to know, would kind of help have a loose framework, I guess, around, instead of just super open-ended, I guess.
I think that's fair. I think, why are you interested? What do you think makes you qualified? Whatever.
Anything
your
else,
personal
yeah.
statement, and optional resume.
Yeah.
If you submit a resume, we'll look at the resume.
And so when are we asking for those to be submitted by, I think would be the next question.
So if we, you know, I would like to have time to review.
Okay.
I would
have to
what
get
do
Sharon
calendars
with the
look like?
select board too.
Right.
Yeah, so if the select board already has a meeting for, I looked it up earlier, but I think it's,
It keeps saying the second, that's a Saturday? Do you mean on a
no, it's not.
Oh,
It's the fifth.
So I would have given you completely the wrong day, just looked it up. Tuesday, December 5th.
And when's our next meeting on Tuesday?
So
I mean, and
Our next meeting is December 13th.
December 13th, so either one of those is fine.
Oh, sorry, 14th, December 14th.
Yeah, yeah.
But the 5th is probably okay, and it gives a I don't know, maybe it's not okay.
I'm out of town the Zoom in, but the 14th would be easier for me. But if we want to do it faster, I can be on a Zoom.
The 28th.
The 28th of November.
I think the 28th doesn't give you the 7-day window.
Do they need a 7-day
You
window?
just,
to
you
post
just
the
launched,
meeting?
you just launched the
7-day
Oh, I'm
window?
sorry,
it
the
started
28th
yesterday.
of November. It's, no, because I mean, the way we notify, I think it would be worthwhile if there's, you know, putting out, effectively, you can notice with it through the schools, but the way we notify, we've just said, raise your hand.
Oh, yeah, Jeff, are you able to do that tomorrow?
So it should come from you guys.
Okay.
I mean,
but-
it only came
Okay.
from me last time because the school committee wasn't sending emails out,
I
so.
see, okay,
yeah.
so, but I can get you an email that we can send out
Sure,
tomorrow. Okay,
yeah. It was on patch already, right?
it was, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we would just update it and say we want, you know, we did write this.
Ask Pete Peterson to put it out.
I did, he
Oh,
already posted it
did you?
yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, one pager with those 3 elements. We'd like it, if we, I mean, would we want to do it on the 28th? Shoot, I am away. Right now, I'm away on the 28th, 29th.
You want to touch base with the select board?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
let us know some dates
See when
after
they
that?
want to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
only,
and
it's
yeah, I
only
think
another
if that's
week,
the-
right? It's only
That's the
another
process
week,
we
yeah.
follow, everyone feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. That's okay. So that, and then it could be fairly, theoretically, you know, and I just think we would just, I have to work, I think maybe it's review Robert's rules, you know, what happens, you know, in the scenarios where the votes, you know, depending how they go. I asked the MASC and they said, yes, sometimes you have to repeat, you know. So, okay, that'll, I mean, everyone, so an application, roughly 3 questions, limited to 1 page, that's what we would ask.
Yep.
Optional resume and submitted. You know, it's not gonna be on the 28th, right? Submitted
No,
by the 30th of the month.
but they could submit it like a week from Monday, like by 7th, you know, something like give the
Yeah,
give the
if
select
we're not gonna
board.
vote on it till, I'm just saying it's not.
You want to give the select board time. You have to collect them and then give it to them too.
We'll just get it, that's just it, we'll work with them.
I mean,
It would
it
make
is a
sense.
holiday next to it.
If it fell on Tuesday the 5th, a week before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that way, if you're all running around on the holiday,
Right.
no matter what, it's net, but it would still, if I were submitting it, I would take a lot of time. I would try to figure out, hey, what do I want to say? Leo wants people working. Thanksgiving holiday.
I just don't want it to drag on.
Michelle would have it done beforehand,
I would.
before she goes anywhere. Okay. Any other questions? That all sounds good. So now we'll go to, anything else?
Nothing else?
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
sorry, can I just one quick thing? So speaking of the select board, they moved their start times of their meetings to 6 o'clock.
They did.
So I don't want to talk about that as something that we should discuss right now, but is that something we would want to discuss in the future, or is that like a no-go for us? What are our thoughts on that, I guess?
Works for me.
So yeah, I guess I would say, I'm definitely, right now, future agenda items.
Okay.
Agenda,
Okay.
receptive to it.
Okay.
Why not? just say yes. You can schedule it whenever you want.
Right.
We don't need to discuss it.
Not an agenda.
Probably good to talk to everybody though.
Let's just add that as
We're
a
off here.
future agenda.
Right now, yeah.
Okay, the, yeah,
What's the was there a decision to move it earlier just because of the amount, how long they go, or was it for convenience for folks?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know why they chose.
And then what do you reckon? Are we recommending it so that we're not keeping poor Molly up till like late into the evening? You know?
yeah, I think that, that's why I'm recommending we
Always,
add it as
yeah.
an agenda item, but it's not an agenda item.
Right,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. I think I have a gavel. Next
They got
time.
one. They got you on at MAC.
But I loved Leo's delivery too. So the strategic plan update. I think that's,
So, Mr. Chair, the only thing I would update is the dashboard. So after our conversation last week, we're gonna make some changes to it and some updates. So, meeting with Neil, and we're looking at launching it now, but after Thanksgiving, based on the changes. So we just have to play around with the structure and the format, and then we'll be ready to go. It's ready to go now, but based on the feedback I got from you guys, I think we should just make those changes. And
yeah, I think it's worth spending a minute or two. We were out at the MASC conference. They talked, there was one session about rolling out the strategic plan. Medfield was actually called out in a favorable way for, in
in a good way, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In a favorable way as model. I think they had some really great ideas in terms of, can you take pieces of that strategic plan and bring it into the website? Maybe, again, remembering some of the key points, but we need to be living that day in and day out. They did talk a little bit about the dashboard or the scorecard. I always think about quantitative versus qualitative. And once you start with that scorecard, you stay with the scorecard. I'd like to see almost a draft, and we almost would say, hey, if you had it, think about it for a couple months. How would you report back on it? And I would almost say, hey, that's the prototype of that scorecard, giving you the right to. It is still, we have our goals are separate,
Right.
but it needs to be workable and something that you 3 years later you say, okay, how are we doing on the strategic plan? So I think that was the conversation, and it was consistent with it. I also, I love the way the strategic, I forget, I wasn't Ace, I was not the other, but the way it was rolled out. It's great.
That's all I have on that.
Okay. And I also, I would say too, one of the things Dr. Marsden said was that he's welcoming that dashboard scorecard. It's great that you want the accountability there yourself.
For everyone, yeah, absolutely.
Which is great. So the school building committee update.
Sure, so I think we have an empty seat now. And the next meeting is December 6th, and Tim can't serve with me due to the bylaw. So do either of you have interest in being the SBC?
I don't think I can. Right?
Why?
My seat's up.
Oh, okay.
You technically can.
Yeah.
Right? It would just be that the seat would be a temporary, it would be like the appointment in the event that you did not return for whatever reason.
Well,
if it was a
I would have a
convenient,
ton of interest in it.
I'll do it. Yeah.
we need somebody there, so yeah,
I mean, I'll
technically.
I'll
The
do it
sixth, I
for
won't
the.
be.
I'll do it for the until the election.
And then we'll reevaluate.
then
Does that make more sense than having? What do you think?
All right, you
is
know,
the
like
best?
I saw a little more, like, I didn't hear wild excitement either one, but you were on it before.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an important item. So, yeah, it's fine. That's fine.
I support,
When's the next
one of the things, so let's talk a little bit
What,
about the
the
meeting
first-
the other night as well.
Yes, true, but I want to make sure that we have not an empty seat coming.
Right, we're gonna circle back,
Okay.
because I'd love to just, I don't know, given we were all there for a change, which I hold off my commentary. No, my commentary for what Michael has done.
Right.
Bringing that team together.
Mm-hmm.
I think a year ago, as we all nominated folks, like, no agenda, everyone kind of getting in there, getting to know one another. I thought the update was phenomenal.
Yeah.
As he's giving an update, I'm thinking to myself, I have this question, and like his next sentence is answering those questions. So I commend with the work that's been done by that group.
I thought the meeting overall was very positive. I think it was I think there's been a little change on the select board, I think, in their view of it compared to the past. This is a new opportunity. This is a new chance. The need is still there. So regardless of what happened in the past, it's going to be there, and it's the reality of the situation is that the price will just continue to go up the longer you wait. So, and I do echo concerns around the household impact. It's much higher than the MSBA number is still 25% higher per household than it was the first time around. And, so I think it's still 2 years ago, but it's not ancient history yet, so I think that's going to be something that communicating how much it's going to be is going to be important. So I do like the creative ideas too about maybe biting off now while we're getting our ducks in a row, and so it's not all at once. And I think that's also a really great idea. Actually, I think that would be a very, very solid idea for the town. And also, like Gus was saying, how allowing more stuff coming off of our what we're spending. So I think that's all good planning around that. And not to reflect, but everyone been watching the Andover news, what's been going on there. So we know that they reached an agreement for the contract with teachers, but they're also following it up with a override for a $400 million high school.
Right.
With an average household tax impact of about between $1,600 and $1,800. So per household, which is huge, I thought, especially when a friend of mine who lives there, his taxes are $6,500. So you could think it's like almost a third. So those are just, that was some of the raw numbers, I think, was the part that I think is communicating that. So it's not sticker shock.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because they did an excellent job of giving numbers. And it seemed to me like then the select board asked again, I need a number. And it's like, we gave you a number. And I think the number was much higher. It's higher than any of us want.
Right.
But then I thought, so I think that to me was a little, we need to continue to work, as a community and as a group, so that there's, ideally there's support.
And I think it's really that awareness of the problem, right? Awareness of the problem is a really big part of that, right? So, and one of the things I keep saying, Wheelock is not getting any younger. Behind, I don't think it's as dire, because classrooms seem pretty big over there, Jeff, right?
Well, Wheelock was built 54 years ago, which is the last school that Medfield was built. The last new school 54 years ago. So they say you want to build it 50 years.
There you go.
Pass that around. Yeah. And it's still in great shape. I mean, I think it's in great shape, but
yeah, I mean, it'll need some maintenance.
Relatively speaking, right? Yeah. I mean, I think it is what it is. It's been 54 years since we built the school.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Michelle wants to make sure she has.
I just want someone in that seat.
Well, I'm okay. I support Leo. I think there may be some interesting, discussions and decisions over the next 90 days with that group given there. And so I think I would appreciate that. Like for that period, I think it would be great. Then we can reevaluate.
Yep.
March.
Do we have to vote him in, or are you making him an appointment?
What did we do before?
I think we voted.
I think we voted.
I'd like to nominate Leo Brem to fill the school committee seat on the SBC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Welcome back.
I hope my wife's not watching. Okay, so we're getting to the end here. Can
community engagement.
Yes, I want to go first. I've been excited to talk about went to the Dale PTO meeting last night. Always a good group. And I'm always blown away every time I sit in on a PTO meeting. They do so much for our teachers. Oh my goodness. Like I've just forgotten just all the things and how much time they put into it around supporting teachers in the classrooms and being so in tune. Evidently there was a rug with no fire identification on it that had to be removed immediately from the Dale Street school, and that a teacher had purchased, and the PTO is going to, buy her the rug for her classroom to maintain a cozier space for the rooms. So, but some of the big takeaways is around the socks and pajama drive for the Cradles to Crayons group. They're planning a kids' night out coming up, and there's a conversation about a guest speaker coming, an author, and what else? There was some discussion around the MCPE applications for some of the grant monies, but I won't steal their thunder on those. And there's going to be a big door decorating contest at Dale. Coming up with the classrooms, decorate their doors, and they're going to be giving themes this year. So we're going to have and identical materials will be distributed. So it'll be around the creativity.
Yeah.
And I'm going to swap the judging. The 4th grade will judge the 5th grade, and vice versa, so that can't load up. Right, Molly, you did. So yeah, and a desperate need, a call out for volunteers at Memorial. So I guess the Memorial is a little shy on volunteers, and so that was some of the main takeaways.
Okay. We have our informal conversations on Monday, December 4th. That'll be a Zoom at 7. Publication about that will start Monday. Will be on the patch on the 27th, and then run in the Hometown Weekly for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, next 2 weeks, and then we'll have it on our social pages as well. So there'll be a Google form for people to fill out to get in any questions or topics that they want to discuss, and go from there.
And I would just say, I think a couple things happened in the last couple of weeks. We put a lot of effort into this over the last year or two. And to me, it's working. I think somebody I met with somebody. It goes, there's a bunch of good things that are happening on that. Somebody came to me with a topic that they wanted to address within a school, and it was really helpful. She said, it was great. Will was at one of our PTO meetings, and I just happened to grab him offline, and here's what I shared, and it was a feedback and suggestion that I think others had heard. And that's part of just by being present, right? Trying to break down the walls, make sure these meetings are important, but a lot of times it's those ones. I think that was great. I thought it was awesome to hear what Nat said today. He's saying working closely with the PTO for some of the I think it was the culturally responsive practices. But that's kind of what we are trying to continue to make
That's
sure.
the third time too, because we also talked about with MCAP about working with the PTO, right? So they're very important, support organization and communication conduit for sure.
A lot more.
Yeah. But yeah. So and even and hats off to Michelle too. I'm surprised people are asking if people are aware immediately about this point. That means that
I was gonna say it was an instant craze.
It was.
it was an awesome idea.
6 text messages almost instantaneously.
I think it was a great idea. Even things like Pete saying, "Hey, I put the word out. I get a lot of information from this blog."
Yeah.
So we're just continuing to make sure all these different committees, where appropriate, can work together. So, long way to go, no question about it.
Right.
But I think it's those are a few things that were helpful. We are, I think, down to informational items.
All right, I just have a couple, if I may.
Yes.
So just busy weekend here. I just want to highlight a couple of things. Good luck to our girls volleyball team is playing for the state championship tomorrow night at Worcester State at 6:30. Hope we have some support, and a big theater weekend here, which is kind of weird. We have both schools having they have musicals and plays at the same weekend, which I think happened last year too, which we do some coordination on that. But we have Aladdin happening at Blake and Greece at the high school. So we're really excited to see that and wish all of them well.
It'll be a big theater weekend in my household.
Yeah, I've got my Grease tickets Sunday, and it was, I think, like 2 weeks ago, it was almost sold out.
I got Grease tickets for Saturday. I'll be there.
Molly, anything you had? No pressure.
Right now we're doing our food drive, so it started on Monday and it's going until I guess Tuesday night because we have Powerpuff. Do you guys know what that is? It's like it's like the girls flag football game. It's like the juniors versus the seniors, and so it ends technically that night because if you want to come see the game, you have to your like ticket in is like a can or a food item. So that's going actually pretty well, and we'll deliver everything Wednesday after school to the food cupboard, so everything will be there for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
A small sigh of relief as we hit November for the seniors, the graduate or the applications and whatnot.
Not really. We still have like deadlines. Like I still have like, I mean, most people still have like regular decision to do too. Like you don't have early action, and then it's like waiting to like antsy and waiting to find out if you get in anywhere. So, I mean, I feel like for early action and early decision, you find out in the middle of December, usually like late November, early to middle December. So we're getting there.
I'm a mountain, you get to the top of that peak and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, a lot going on for this week because there's like the food drive and then there's Grease and the volleyball game. There's a lot going on and Powerpuff. So there's a lot this week.
All good stuff.
Yeah. And then the dance is in 2 weeks from tomorrow, I think. Yeah. It's a dance. We have a dance, a school dance, the winter dance.
Is it here?
Yeah, it's in the gym. It'll be in the gym.
Cool. Future agenda items, district fees, meeting times we just added. And next meeting's just
Thank you.
and start times. Yeah, I know. And next meeting is December 14th here, and potentially December 5th, which we would do like we did the SBC. It would be potentially December 5th or 11th.
We'll have to see what the select board wants to do.
Yeah, so, and I'll reach out to Pete.
Okay.
So that December 14th meeting is our first draft of FY25 budget. So we'll present
Okay.
that too as well. Emphasis on the word draft.
Right.
Yeah. Although I thought the guidance from Mark was relatively promising. Yeah.
Right.
So I thought that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry we went over a little longer. That might be why we just talked earlier. Starting earlier. But a productive meeting. I loved the the first hour and a half.
Yeah, that was good.
I hear a motion to close.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.